Story 1. Yes, during my college days, I went through a breakup and my body went into autopilot, but I do not remember much. I went to the doctor, and they told me I lost 40 pounds. I did not even notice. Story 2. I was hit with a sudden divorce years ago. I knew things were not going great, but did not think it had reached that point. I offered couples counseling, time apart, time together, whatever we needed to do, but I was not met with the same willingness to work on it. Her friend group had become my friend group. I saw her family more than my own. I really felt like I had nowhere to go to talk about it. The first few nights were the hardest. All you have is uncertainty. But then I talked to my sister and just told her everything. I got some good advice, but it is not about the advice. It is having someone to listen and care. She helped tell the rest of the family to avoid more awkward conversations. Then family started reaching out to check on me. I reconnected with an old friend, which felt great. I went out and did things I normally did not do. Even if they were not my typical activities, it felt good to try something new. Slowly but surely, all the uncertainty became opportunities. What habits do I want to establish now? Who do I want to become? What kind of person do I deserve to be with? I dipped my toes back into dating, not to find a life partner or to have sex, but to connect with people and to be selective, only giving my time to those who seem worth it. You think there is no way you can put your life back together, and then once you start, you realize just how easy it really is. It is also empowering and can provide insight into how you used to live your life versus how you rebuild your life. Story 3. When I found out my wife, now ex, was cheating, I broke down, crying and not eating. At work, all I did was obsess about gathering information for evidence and thinking about how to get revenge. Story 4. My grade point average dropped from a 3.8 to a 2.2. I almost dropped out, even though I was finishing junior year of my bachelor's program. I barely ate. I basically lived on cigarettes and cheap wine. It was awful, but it had to be done. She cheated multiple times, and I finally ended the relationship for good. Took so much out of me. If it were not for a couple of good friends, I probably would not have recovered in time to make the push during my senior year. Story 5. Yes, because you let your whole heart love that person. Takes time to heal, but you can and will if you work at it. Okay? Please don't wallow in this. Feel it and move on. It's really the best way. Story 6. Oh, absolutely. After my breakup, I was often sick, which was unusual for me because I rarely used to get sick. I actually developed a rash that took nearly 3 months to go away. Doctors were puzzled since I hadn't been to the beach, hadn't done anything strenuous, didn't travel, and was fully vaccinated as a child. The only significant change in my life at that point was the breakup. They told me my body was reacting to the stress of that breakup. The breakup happened in November, and I was pretty non-functional until the middle of April. I barely got by. Story 7. What hurt the most was that for so long we seemed perfect together. I thought it was special. When I finally couldn't take it anymore, I had to leave. It has been over a year and it still hurts. I want to feel that love again, but I am afraid of getting hurt again, and that has been the biggest factor for me as to why I have never even attempted to meet another woman. I have a hard enough time now even functioning around people in general. I see couples happy together and it stings. I get jealous, honestly. I want that too. I have since moved out of state, started school, and I want to leave that behind me. But I cannot stop thinking about her every day. Story 8. My ex and I broke up 11 years ago. Most days, I feel the same emptiness in mind and body that I did the day she sent me selfies of herself and her new boyfriend. A week or two after we broke up, she got engaged a year later and married the following year. As for me, anything remotely connected to her makes me think of her and wonder, what if? I could be watching the Weather Channel, and when the regional map shows the weather in her part of the country, I feel a little sad. She was the one. I have dated and been in relationships since then, but it has always felt less than. Story 9. Yes, it was abusive and we were trauma bonded. I tried to kill myself, but it was not because of the relationship ending. It was because he made me feel so low about myself. I hated myself and wanted to disappear. Obviously, things got better the further away he was from me. Story 10. Oh boy, yes. The guy I was crazy about actually cheated on me, and I found out because the girl sent me a message saying he had come over to swim in her pool and left his shorts there, and I needed to come pick them up. Now, anyway, I broke up with him, but I was devastated. I cried for several days straight, but what helped me the most was talking to friends and making myself go out to dinner with them, shop, or just talk even when I didn't want to. He eventually asked me back, but I told him to go to hell or something like that. It hurts like hell, but I promise time and friends make it tolerable. Story 11. I was used by a man for about half a year. It ended badly. I don't remember much from the first 6 months of the 2 years it took me to heal. What makes me really sad is that I no longer look like myself. Story 12. Not me, but a friend of mine. He was with his girlfriend for some time, and she was always overweight, didn't take care of herself, but he still loved her. He finally convinced her to start taking care of herself because he was worried about her. She went to the gym, ate healthy, lost a lot of weight, and started taking pride in her appearance. He supported and encouraged her from day one, never forced anything on her. Then she left him, basically telling him she thought she could do better now. It hit him very badly. He became agoraphobic. He would have panic attacks just stepping out the door. It took him years of therapy and support to get better. He is much better now. That's all in the past for him, fortunately, but it really affected him deeply. Story 13. When I was 18, I was dumped and told it was because they no longer felt anything for me. I found out a week later, the week I spent trying to mend the relationship, that she not only had a new boyfriend but had also cheated on me with him for the past month. Bonus points. I knew the guy. He hated me for petty reasons, and I am sure he did it just for that. A few months later, they broke up too. Story 14. Isn't that just a proper breakup? If you are not emotionally wrecked, you were not invested. Source. I do not date anymore. Story 15. When I was a freshman in college, I dated Carol. She was a senior in high school. She was amazing. We adored each other. We read books together. We completed each other's thoughts. Then, one night after Christmas, she broke up with me over the phone. No explanation. Just told me that she was ending it. It shattered me. Fast forward 30 years, and I received a message on Facebook from her with an explanation. Turns out her mom didn't approve of me. He was a doctor and she was a society type, and they thought she could do better. Never mind that I was attending a solid private college on a Phi Beta Kappa scholarship. Never mind that I was on the dean's list while working a 30-hour-a-week job to pay the rest of my expenses. Nope, because I was driving a 10-year-old Chevrolet with a dent in the side. I just wasn't the right material. But you know what? I met a fantastic woman and married her. We've had a great life filled with love and laughter. With my wife's permission, I had a catch-up phone call with Carol. Then I realized something. I had forgotten all the neuroses and drama. I had forgotten how her controlling mother was still influencing her life after 30 years. I had forgotten every bit of that. Dodged a bullet is all I have to say. Story 16. Yes. Freshly out of a 15-year marriage, I was completely love-bombed, manipulated, and tossed aside after 7 months of being pursued by this man. It was all just a conquest for him. I opened myself up to the first man in all those years, and he treated me like garbage. Story 17. Oh yes. I had a girlfriend who had a 3-year-old little girl from a previous marriage. Due to her cocaine addiction and a trip to Thailand with another man, since I do not do drugs and she may have slept with him as well, I broke up with her. I missed her a lot, but I missed the little girl more. It took me many days and drinking to get over it and be my normal self again. Story 18. Yes, absolutely. I have found that words do not help. Friends do not help. Substances do not help. The one and only thing that does help is time. Story 19. I felt physically sick every time I thought of him for 2 months. Then I would get in a bad mood from thinking about him and feeling so sick that I lashed out at everyone. Every time I thought about him, my heart hurt. I missed him for about 2 years. Then one day I started caring a little less every day. Took a long time, but finally I am over him. Story 20. I became very anxious to try to make myself feel better. I immediately messaged a mental health hotline, booked a virtual therapy appointment, went to the farmer's market and bought a lot of produce, made myself an elaborate and healthy meal, then signed up for the gym. Through all my pain, I just wanted to improve myself so I could be good enough for the next man. Story 21. Yes, most of my breakups occurred between ages 18 and 23. I have now processed my trauma and learned how to handle my emotions. The intensity is no longer there. Story 22. My ex of 7 years broke up with me to be with the person she cheated with. I spent many years afterward in a drunken stupor because facing my feelings was not something I wanted or was prepared to do. Story 23. One way to speed the healing process is to do yourself a favor and completely change your environment. The subtle reminders all around you will prolong the grief. A sense of starting over completely is required. That usually means moving, getting out of whatever place you were living during the relationship. The walls remind you of them. New walls mean no memory of the place shared with them. This can also mean your entire city. If possible, seek an opportunity to move to a completely different place. Opposite coast, new state, or even a new country. A new job too, which means a new routine, new people, new commute. Over time, change everything about your life that was shared with that person. That helps pull you out of dwelling in the old life. This applies to any kind of grief, whether the death of a person or the end of a relationship. If my wife were to die, one of the first things I would do is move into a place we didn't live in together and get rid of all her belongings. This is hard for some people. My father-in-law has been clinging to his late wife's old clothes for 3 years now. He won't give them away or sell them. As terrible as her death was, 3 years on we expect some effort to move past it. You never get over it, but you can get past it. Instead, he remains stuck in the same place with the same things. It doesn't lessen their absence to shed their belongings and move, but not having their belongings and presence in the walls helps to not amplify their absence. Story 24. I had a panic attack when she told me she was done. I was legitimately shaking. She was even lying next to me that night because she wanted to talk more in the morning. This was mid-2022. We ended up in separate beds. Then I gave her space and went to my parents' house for a week. When I came back, all her belongings were gone. I broke down again. I stayed in that apartment for another 4 months. I was struggling to manage my job, breaking down a few times in the office. My former coworkers were very supportive, and I took some sick days and remote days to get myself together, but I did not get much work done. I lost nearly 10 pounds from not really eating. Luckily, I do not drink when I am depressed, except when a friend pulled me out of the apartment to get food. I felt angry, sad, upset, depressed, and was suffering. The person who had helped me through so much in life, and whom I had helped, decided she was done. Most of her friends did not like me, so it was easy to disconnect from them, but I did lose some friends. Fortunately, I had made friends not based on mutual connections and had some friends from before, and they were all very supportive. 14 years together, 6 years married, down the drain. I am overall in a better place now, but it still hurts to this day. I have not tried dating yet. I need to put myself back together and reach a point where I can trust again. Story 25. I could not sleep more than a couple of hours a night for most of a year. She did the awful thing of stringing me along instead of a clean breakup. My sleep has never returned to normal even though I have been over her for years. Story 26. For me, she was basically the most attractive woman I have ever dated, in terms of style, sexuality, and beauty. I am now married to a more beautiful woman, which is a difference you must understand. However, this woman left the state, stopped contacting me, and then started posting pictures of herself wearing only an apron at a man's house in Colorado. It took me a few days to be able to eat and some time before I felt like myself again. Story 27. My last relationship lasted 6 years, and we were friends before that during our formative years. We grew apart slowly and could never seem to change things. Each of us was asking the other to change. Eventually, it felt like our lives were starting to go down 2 different paths after years of discussing what we wanted for our life together. COVID-19 and lockdown largely contributed to this. He later told me that sometimes he felt that period allowed him to come out of the survival mode he had been in since being kicked out of home. His pursuit of new hobbies and lifestyle changes came at the cost of everything we had discussed before. Meanwhile, I was more focused on getting us out of debt and actually starting our life together after so long. I pleaded for him to be more considerate and stop spending nearly all his money on hobbies, hoping he would quickly turn them into something profitable. I asked him to stop going to the club so often and drinking. For about the last 3 years, it felt like I was paying the majority of our bills, barely keeping afloat while also damaging my mental health. I miss him. I miss us. I miss our old life. I want my future family, and I want him back. But I know it is not going to be good for us. We are toxic for each other. And with everything that has happened and all the yelling, nothing would ever be the same again. Story 28. I have not dated in almost 10 years. I have had flings, and a couple of girls actually chased me, surprisingly. However, I have not felt an obsessive connection in a very long time. There are thousands of people like me out here. Story 29. When I left my abusive relationship that had lasted 5 years, my body was stuck in an anxious fight or flight mode. I could barely eat, sleep, or live normally. My brain would not work, and I could barely function. It was scary to make the jump, but 9 months later, my life has improved significantly. I am learning every day that things do not have to be scary anymore. I am free to be myself, and he no longer matters. Story 30. I have never been unable to function. A few times it felt rough, but I just kept on living life. There is solid evidence supporting the idea of fake it till you make it. If you just go through the motions, doing things like being social, exercising, eating, and working, it will actually help the feelings go away compared to just having a pity party. Experiences like this eventually fade. It is basically a neurochemical addiction you are detoxing from. It is just biology, so there is no reason to be overly mystical about it. Humans form strong pair bonds because it enhances survival chances, but you need to understand that and find a way to get past the bad feelings before it gets better. Story 31. Twice. The first time was when my ex-fiancée cheated on me. A 7-year relationship down the drain. She told all my friends it was me who did the cheating, so I lost them too. I don't actually remember much about that year. I do remember falling heavily into drinking, then deciding that wasn't healthy. Every time I was tempted to buy a drink, I put the money into Dogecoin before it spiked. I thought I was wasting it, so I picked a silly coin. Unexpectedly, it ended up paying for an expensive holiday to Greece, which helped a little. The last time was more recent. It's not quite as bad, but I find myself just getting home, sitting on the sofa, and feeling unmotivated to do anything. It made it much harder to get up for work, too. I was a few hours late a couple of times, and I'm pretty lucky my boss is understanding. Story 32. Yes, I had that happen to me. I can see now, looking back, that I was very low when I got into the relationship and that person became the center of everything I did. Once they left, I didn't know what to do. It took me a bit of time, but I slowly found my passions and hobbies and made some good friends. I am married now and would say that I was quite happy on my own before I met my wife. Story 33. Yeah, going through it now. With her around 11 years, married for 4, we have a child together and have been living together most of that time. A decade. I never saw anything going wrong. We've always had arguments and moments, but we made an incredible team, and we were building a life together. We finally got a house. I had recently bought a small side business that was just taking off, with the goal of making enough, along with my main job, for my wife to quit her job so she could be a stay-at-home mom. She was stressed and miserable having to work and be a mom, or at least that's what she said. She made it seem that if she could just be a stay-at-home mom, all would be well. I was a month or 2 away from making that happen. Anyway, long story short, we got in an argument one night. She made a very serious false allegation and left with our son. It has literally destroyed me in more ways than one. It has ruined my life, down to an arrest and potential conviction. We aren't divorced yet. There is no closure because I literally can't even speak to her. I can't see our son without supervision, which isn't possible because I moved my life hours away to start my life and family with her. Her family is all I have here. To see him supervised would mean my parents coming here, which is nearly impossible, so I can't even see the only purpose I have. Even after all that betrayal, for some reason, I still love her and want to try to reconcile and work through it. I don't know why, because I'm so hurt. I can't figure out why she would do what she did, why she would make such an egregious false claim against me, if she actually believes it. Even if she does, how could she keep me out of our child's life when she knows I've always been a great father? It is literally causing our child permanent trauma and harm by ripping me out of his life like this. I have only seen him a few times in almost 5 months now. He's not even 3 years old, and the last time I saw him, he hugged me for 10 minutes, crying and telling me he missed me. When I see him, he cries and doesn't want to leave or go back when our time is up. It's heartbreaking. That's when I question myself, wondering how I can even want her back when I blame her for putting him through that level of pain. I'm available every single day for that boy. I literally cry every day over all of this. Mostly for our son, but really for the whole situation. I would literally do anything and everything to fix things, but I don't know what to do. I don't think I can. I hate this all so much. I just want to hug my boy. Story 34. I was with someone for 18 years. He left me 2 weeks before Christmas for a younger woman. I was already suffering from depression, so I went down into a deep despair and had to be hospitalized in a psychiatric ward. Story 35. Hell yeah. Couple of times. The last one was 5 years ago, and that woman just sucker punched me in a million ways. It turns out that instead of her exes being the narcissistic sociopaths, it was her all along. Everything about her was a lie, including her education and her commitment. Awful person. Story 36. Childhood sweetheart. Together for 20 years. He had a midlife crisis and an affair with a work colleague after persuading me to have another child. He admitted the affair because the colleague had become pregnant. We broke up. My mother died 4 weeks later after battling cancer for 4 years. Breakup grief and the death of a loved one are not the same. I could not function properly. You will be okay in the long run. Just take one day at a time and look to the future for positives. Story 37. Yeah, I have felt that. Sometimes the emotional toll leaves you drained, and everything feels hard to manage. It is like you have lost a part of yourself. Story 38. Because I was a teenager and placed far too much self-value on it being an expression of my meager successes at the time. Story 39. Only my first ever, as I had never experienced any sort of breakup before besides that of my divorced parents at the time. It was very difficult to accept that someone could love you but not want to be with you. Story 40. Yes, the recovery process is slow, but take it one day at a time. In my opinion, the best remedies are focusing on yourself, which can mean doubling down on hobbies and activities that bring you joy, self-care, learning new skills, and accomplishing goals you have been putting off. Refocus on relationships with friends and family. It will still hurt, but you want to keep positivity, joy, and purpose in your life and come out of it in a better place as a human being. One day, you will find someone who appreciates that better version of you and makes all the hurt seem like a bad dream from the past. Story 41. Absolutely. Then husband of 10 years. We had children together, his elderly mother lived with us, and we were active in our church. Perfect family and marriage, right? No. He was emotionally and verbally abusive for the entire 10 years we were married, then cheated with another woman and left us for her. He abandoned everyone to pursue his midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. I'm not saying I was a perfect wife, but I endured a lot during that marriage, only for him to be the one who ended it. I was actually glad to see him leave and didn't resist when he did, which surprised him. I think he expected me to beg him to stay, but I didn't. However, the emotional damage from such a breakup is very real. The first year was extremely difficult. I lay in bed at night thinking about eliminating both of them, though I never intended to act on those thoughts. At that time, it felt good to imagine them gone. I contemplated ending my own life more than once but pushed those thoughts away because I had children. I refused to leave them in my ex's care or cause them emotional harm. During that first year, I just went through the motions of life. Everyone thought I was fine, but inside, I really was not. After that year, I started getting stronger, standing up to him whenever he tried to belittle or yell at me, and made sure he knew he wouldn't walk all over me in the divorce. I moved out of state to avoid seeing him regularly, which meant he tormented me by phone and text instead, but those were easier to manage. I would tell him we'd talk when he was calm and rational, then hang up and not answer if he called back immediately. We've been divorced over 25 years now. The children are well into adulthood. He recently tried to start trouble with me again over one of our children going no contact with him. He blamed me, of course, though I had nothing to do with it and told him so. Then I blocked him. He now has no way to reach me at all. Story 42. It was back in college. I moved out with my boyfriend. My best friend at the time was completely in love with him. She never told me, but it was obvious. He could not stand her, is what he told me. We both moved back home during summer, and they got together. I was completely devastated. Apparently, they were hiding it from me. That actually triggered a lifetime of trust issues. Story 43. Yes. I was 21. I remember collapsing as I was leaving his house because I was sobbing so hard. For weeks, I was like that. Took me 5 years to fully recover. Even after those 5 years, I continued therapy because I realized I was still traumatized. It has been 9 years now, and I still think about it, but it does not sting anymore. It is more like a wow, what a freak accident. Story 44. Yes, back in university. We had dated in high school but broke up when I moved away for university. We thought it would be too much since I moved 8 hours away and had to concentrate on my schooling. But we missed each other so much and got back together at Christmas time. I was so in love with him. He was my whole world. Then it all came crumbling down, and he ended up breaking up with me for my best friend. I lost them both. Took me years to get over it. Story 45. When it happens, it feels like the worst thing in the world. You walk around wondering if you will see them, and it hurts. But it soon passes, and you will eventually move on. Story 46. Yes, I was 21, and it was my first boyfriend, who I had been with since I was 16. I thought I was in love. I was devastated and confused. I stopped going out, stopped eating, and just cried. I would sit in the shower and ask the universe why it had to be me who had their heart ripped out while crying. But after a while, I got my life together and improved in all aspects. I realized the breakup was the best thing that ever happened to me. Story 47. My ex broke up with me after a couple of months. We were not madly in love or anything. The rejection stung because I was vulnerable before we dated and was not mentally in a place where I should be dating. It did not help that he blindsided me and was casually misogynistic and cruel. That was the reason the breakup was bad. Opening up to someone when you are vulnerable and them lacking the empathy to treat you like a human. Story 48. Oh, absolutely. The devastation started a year before we even broke up. I was sure he was the love of my life. I was completely committed to him, and I could not picture my life without him. I thought we had something special, but he made it clear that he did not feel the same way. He was not committed, was increasingly unkind, denied things he had said and done, and would not allow for good communication. I never wanted to be apart from him, but I had to leave because he made it clear that things would never improve. For months after, I was sad, sick, and worried for him. I was absolutely devastated. But things eventually start to turn around if you commit to building a new life. Story 49. Yes, back in my 20s, I met the girl of my dreams. We worked together, and she was the reason I stayed at the job. I made sure I was present whenever she came to work. I stayed in the background, and we would make eyes at each other and smile. This went on for months. Then one day our manager asked if I could give her a ride home, which I did without hesitation. We talked on the way home, and I got her number. We started talking from there, and she was perfectly matched with me. We had a lot in common and could not get enough of each other. Then we started dating as a couple for 5 months. Then an ex-girlfriend came back into my life and started doing everything in her power to disrupt things. The ex and I had dated for 5 years, and I was going to propose, but she went a bit crazy, so I ended it. I was so hurt that I told the girl we should take a break so I could figure things out. After a few months, I tried to contact her, but she was nowhere to be found. She quit the job we were at, and I knew I wanted to be with her, but she was just gone. I was out of myself for the next 2 years. I tried to find her, but nothing. Then, just like that, she came back and told me she was in a relationship with a man. She said she had wanted me badly, but that the man she was now with was where she wanted to stay, and she asked me to move on. I honestly don't remember the next 2 years afterward. I drank myself to the point of not remembering anything. A few years later, the man cheated on her the year they were supposed to be married. She immediately married the next man because she was pregnant. They were married for a couple of years, and he cheated on her. They divorced, and then she dated a man who tried to kill her and her children, who were now 3 from a previous short relationship before the man who tried to kill her. I feel responsible for that life she has. Had I not taken that break to sort myself out, I would be happily married to her now. Life would have been perfect with her. We were like yin and yang. I never in my entire life felt as loved except for the love your mother has for you. I felt like I had the other half of myself. Needless to say, I am crushed by the course of her life after I let her go to protect her from all the trouble from the ex-girlfriend who was envious of my new relationship with this girl. It's all a dream to me now. I'm married now for 18 years and have a family, but the ghost of her still haunts me. Life. Story 50. I am going through this right now. It happened 2 days ago. I want to keep lying in bed, crying. I don't want to eat. Why? It just didn't work out due to circumstances. We are both genuinely in love, but he didn't want to drag it out longer and be unfair to me. So he said it would be better if we broke up so I could start to heal. It hit me hard. I thought we had more time. I hoped we could be together forever. Delusional all the way. This was the very first time I was genuinely happy. This was the very first time I actually saw a future. I wanted to grow old with him and was excited to see it through. And the castle made of cards all fell. It isn't just about me. I am also scared for his future. It might not be possible for him to have a happy life. We have tried everything and exhausted every option. I have been having chest pains and pressure, crying like a baby, shaking and can't sleep. After I finally cried myself to sleep, I wake up within 20 to 40 minutes, and the crying starts, shaking my body again. Every time, I hope it was just a bad dream. I just can't. Story 51. When I caught my ex-wife of 10 years cheating, I couldn't eat or function at all for almost 45 days. I lost 30 pounds, going from 195 to 165 at 6 feet tall. I couldn't even have sex for over 3 months, and even then I had to use medication. She broke my heart. She came to regret it. I'm still heartbroken and just numb. I tried dating but ended up hurting some amazingly sweet women. So now I just stick to myself to avoid hurting anyone. I focus on my kids, my businesses, and myself. I'm in the best shape of my life, nearly financially free, and get to spend all the time I want with my 2 boys. Story 52. Yes. Could not eat, could not sleep, reread every text 300 times as if it were a sacred scroll. The worst part was they were out living life like nothing happened. Story 53. Not a breakup, but I spent about a year in bed after my husband passed away. I am not even sure how long. Story 54. I had one when I was 25 that threw me into a depressive episode that lasted several years. I stopped hanging out with friends and deactivated my social media. Basically, I put my head down and worked my main job and 2 side hustles. When I wasn't doing that, I was dissociating through maladaptive daydreaming. After reflecting on that period of my life, I realized it wasn't so much the end of my relationship that caused me to break down. It was my finances and living situation, combined with social rejection, that led me to retreat into myself. Had my life been pleasant in other areas, the breakup probably wouldn't have impacted me as much as it did. Story 55. Yes, it was my breakup with my first love. I could not cope whatsoever. It was such a bizarre and terrible time. People said the same platitudes that I am guessing you have heard too. But nothing would take away the terrible grief I felt. It was very real to me. I still remember it 20 years later, and I still hurt for that girl. It was probably a very strong sign that my brain chemicals needed some assistance. It is very normal to have heartbreak, but I could not get up from it. I was an optimistic person, but something about my makeup changed altogether. I encourage you to seek help if you cannot feel any better soon or start using maladaptive coping mechanisms, which I also did with disastrous consequences. It's okay to not be okay. However, call a professional. After I got my brain on an even keel, it took time. I hate time, but it is what it is. It eddies away your heartbreak, like water etches itself into a rock. Be well and look after yourself. Life is not fair, but life is fairly good. Story 56. Yes, I have. Being bipolar can make it feel like I am literally dying without them when we break up, even if I was the one who initiated the breakup. Story 57. I'm really bad at breakups, but each one gets a little bit easier. It took me 2 years to get over my divorce, a year to get over the next relationship, a little less with the one after that. With the current breakup I am facing, I'll probably be over it in 6 months. Story 58. During my last experience, I became obsessed with Pilates and had to go almost every day or I would freak out, sometimes multiple times a day. I completed over 100 classes in a few months easily. The positive side is I have abs now. I also cried every day and lost a significant amount of weight. I feel like a changed person, and now I think I might not ever date again. I never want to feel like that again, especially not because of another person. It was an unnecessary but needed mess. Story 59. I went through very severe depression at the time. A lot of it was due to the fact that the relationship was not healthy. It was overly codependent, and neither of us was mentally healthy enough to be in a relationship, much less combine both of our mental health issues. It was not a good combination. Story 60. When your spouse sexually abuses your child, it is a long and difficult process. It took me 2 years and 10 months to gain custody. Story 61. I was in an 8-year relationship. Toward the end, it became very mentally and physically abusive. When she broke up with me on our wedding day for another man, I had a difficult time. There were moments when completing simple tasks was really hard. I was unaware that I had been abused until I spoke with someone who had also been abused and opened up about their experience. At first, I thought they were just complaining about their relationship and we were relating. Then they said, yes, it was abusive, but not nearly as abusive as what it sounds like yours was. That then upset me for a while because I had no idea I was a victim of abuse. Story 62. Yes, I have. Once after a 4-year relationship and now after breaking up another relationship that lasted almost as long. 6 years have passed since that first breakup and I thought I would never feel so low again. But here I am, 2 months into the breakup, and although I am no longer struggling to eat, I cannot focus on anything. I shower, eat, work, and sleep, dreaming of her every night, and that is about it. I cannot study or enjoy anything in life for now. I will begin therapy today to see if I can get out of this hole. Story 63. My hair started falling out. I was so heartbroken. I was 16 the first time I caught feelings, I guess. There weren't even really good qualities to love about the guy, thinking back. I was more in love with the idea of love. After the initial honeymoon phase, we started to drift apart, so I broke it off. I've been in relationships since then, but at the age of 29, I still haven't let myself feel anything close to that way since. Not that I still hold a candle for him. I just don't have it in me to go through hair loss and that chest-caving feeling again. Story 64. It was a friendship breakup for me. I caught a cold, which then became a chest infection and a cough that lasted 3 months. I went through 3 rounds of antibiotics and lost my voice for a week. At one point, I was crying in bed because my ribs hurt so much every time I coughed. In terms of my physical health, it affected me worse than getting divorced. Story 65. Yes. My life partner started using drugs. We broke up after 10 years. I could not get out of my bed. Severe depression followed. Medication and therapy helped. Why? Our life goals scattered. No life of serenity without him. He knew he was slowly destroying himself with drugs. He passed away in Florida, the drug state. Where else? Life goes on, though torn apart. I moved far away, but I cannot erase him from my mind. Story 66. Yes, sophomore year of college. I still don't understand why that one affected me the way it did, because there were relationships that were longer and more serious than that one, but it wrecked me. You know the phrase, sick to your stomach? I was literally sick to my stomach and throwing up as he dumped me in his unpleasant little on-campus apartment. He cried. He cried. I couldn't be alone at night and would either stay with a friend or have a friend stay with me, and did my best to stay busy throughout the day and evening. I had to get a prescription for Xanax because I couldn't sleep. I lost about 15 pounds in 2 weeks because I couldn't eat and the thought of food made me want to vomit. I had to force myself to nibble tiny bites, especially in front of my Eastern European mom to make her happy, and basically choke them down. That was the only time a breakup hurt like that, and I hope it's the last time because I couldn't imagine going through it again. I still couldn't tell you why. It's not like this guy was amazing. He wasn't my first love. And not too long after him, I had a longer and more serious relationship that didn't last, and I didn't go through anywhere near that level of pain. If you're looking for advice, it's cliche, but it works. Stay busy. Force yourself to stay busy and surround yourself with good people who love you. The friends who were there for me then aren't in my life anymore, but they understood what I was going through. I tried to remind myself of logical things and not just focus on how much I was hurting emotionally. I told myself that every day was one day closer to hurting less, getting over him, and meeting someone amazing. Honestly, other than staying busy, the one thing that helped was time. Pretty soon, time passed and the pain lessened significantly, and I reached a point where I was truly happy. I didn't even want anyone. I was so happy I thought, I don't want a man to come around and ruin it all over again. I hope some of this helps. We've all been there and we've all gotten through it, and you will too. Believe in yourself and keep reminding yourself of that bright side. You just have to figure out what is going to work for you. Story 67. I broke up with my last boyfriend, and it took me 3 years to completely move on. He led me to the darkest days of my life. Story 68. Yes. My senior year of high school, I was an A and B student. When the girl I just knew I was going to marry and live happily ever after with moved away and started dating someone else, I just couldn't do school anymore. All my grades went from A's and B's to D's and F's. The weird thing is the most strict teacher I had, a man who taught algebra, was the key person to get me out of my funk. He would come to my study hall and help me do my homework. It might be more accurate to say make me do my homework, but once it clicked that I had to keep going, I got back on track and moved on with my life. Probably took me a good 6 weeks, but his persistence paid off for me. It was a small school, so he knew what I was dealing with, but we never once talked about it. Once I got back on track, he quit coming to study hall, and it all worked out. Story 69. I struggled with my first relationship, but this was due to many factors. It wasn't that I still loved her. I just felt very betrayed and hurt to the point that talking about it gave me anxiety. First, the relationship was not the best. We loved each other a lot, but I was still quite inexperienced, which caused me to make mistakes. Meanwhile, she had sociopathic tendencies due to past trauma. This caused her to never be open with me about her feelings and to bottle things up for the sake of our relationship. Second, I had a burnout at that time, which developed into a panic disorder just before the relationship ended. One reason for the burnout was putting too much of my energy into the relationship and neglecting other important aspects of my life. Third, she never explained why she wanted to break up. She just said I did things wrong but didn't want to go into detail. I was at my lowest point in life, and my ex left without explaining why, making me feel like a burden. That was traumatic at the time. We hadn't been together long, but all these circumstances caused me to struggle. I moved on from my romantic feelings fairly quickly, but it took me years to heal from the breakup itself. Story 70. I barely ate for 2 weeks, but my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder brain finally went silent for a while. It was strangely blissful. Story 71. Yes, my then girlfriend broke up with me after 10 years. I literally could not function anymore at work and lived in a daze for about 2 weeks. Took around 3 months to feel slightly okay again. You know what helped the most? Just talking to friends and family. The breakup made me realize that people around me were actually there for me, and that helped me so much even if they could not really do anything. I also made a conscious effort to avoid alcohol and drugs, keep the house clean, and so on, just to prove to myself that I could overcome this. Afterwards, this really boosted my self-esteem, and I realized breaking up had actually been for the best. It does not feel like it now, but it does get better, and it might even turn out to be something positive in the long run. Story 72. I got broken up with pretty abruptly after almost 10 years of dating. On top of it being absolutely horrible, it was over a phone call because he had been overseas. After the phone call, I instantly ran to my mother and cried uncontrollably for about 2 hours. I told her everything my narcissistic ex did and how much it hurt. I was able to move on because we went no contact instantly. But I cry almost every day, missing the times of having someone next to me and giving all my love. Story 73. The best piece of advice I can give is to go through the motions, don't suppress your feelings, and be kind to yourself. Everyone has the right to choose who they want to spend their time with. Believe me, I know it hurts when you don't get to spend time with the person you want most. You will get through this. Obviously, it is going to be on your mind every day, the would-haves, could-haves, should-haves. However, the past is the past. I know that sounds harsh, but many of us have been where you are now. It will take time. During that time, treat yourself with respect and love. Story 74. I was controlled and oppressed for so long it became normal to me. When I finally left, it was like I had gotten out of jail. Instead of feeling euphoric, I developed severe post-traumatic stress disorder, panic attacks, and depression, like an animal that had been caged for too long. Therapy and medication saved me, and after a year I was back to normal. I would never again surrender myself so wholeheartedly. Story 75. 18 years ago, I was never the same again. I couldn't eat a full meal for months afterward. I had been trying to lose weight for years, but after that happened, I didn't even notice how much I had lost. Why? Because I was very emotionally unhealthy and completely codependent. I was so deeply in love with how similar we were and the amazing connection we had that I refused to accept any differences between us. This meant I was in deep denial that our relationship could be anything less than perfect. I was completely incapable of seeing any problems, so the breakup blindsided me. After that, I worked hard on becoming a better person and fixing my relationship issues. When I said I was never the same again after a while, that became a good thing. Story 76. I kind of snapped when my ex-wife left me. I'm sure I scared a lot of people for a couple of weeks. I questioned reality quite a bit, wondering if my ex was actually there with me, but I couldn't see her, although she could observe me. I called in sick to work for 2 months straight for some reason. I was evicted from my apartment, had to sell everything I had, and relied on a rebound girlfriend until she was tired of me. Then I received my pension check in the mail from the job I had been fired from by that point, and I was able to get back on my feet. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.